Welcome to Ambassador Notes. We are now on the fourth pillar of Islam. It's amazing that we've gotten so far, but it's been really good. Right now, we're going to talk about what's called in Arabic Sawm, or fasting. The Islamic tradition of fasting is in some ways similar to the Christian discipline, but in some ways quite different. So the first thing is that unlike in Christianity, where you just have different types of fasting or abstinence, just depending on who you are and what denomination you belong to. In Islam, it's a uniform tradition, and basically fasting means no food, no water, and no intercourse. So that is the tradition of fasting, and indeed, you're not supposed to let anything go down your throat, which means technically you can't even swallow your saliva. This means that during fasting period, which is especially Ramadan, we'll get to that in a second, but during Ramadan, people can be very they can be very grumpy. Oftentimes, people will not want to talk because then, it dries out your mouth. So then you want to drink water. So you'll see people spitting a lot because they don't want to swallow their saliva, so they'll spit. And also, people cannot smoke. And if you're if you're a guy or a lady who's used to smoking quite a bit, going that entire period without smoking can be very very bothersome and very very difficult. So the Islamic fasting tradition is quite different and quite demanding, quite difficult. Even in Christianity, I've always thought that people may not eat anything or even drink anything other than water, but the human body for several hours without water just really does not do very well. Now, fasting can be used throughout the entirety of the year, but it is especially associated with the holy month of Ramadan. We have another video on Ramadan if you want to go back a couple of months. But Ramadan, of course, is the Islamic holy month when they celebrate the beginning of the revelation of the Quran according to their historiography and tradition. And during this entire month, you're supposed to fast from sunup until sundown. Now, this also is difficult because the Islamic year doesn't go by seasons. It's 12 lunar months. So every year, it changes a little bit. So sometimes you can have Ramadan during the summer when sunup is very early and sundown is very late and it's very hot outside. That is a very difficult time to do the fast, but it's the rule. It's mandatory. And now during Ramadan, it's quite interesting because people actually tend to eat more during Ramadan than they do during the rest of the year. You might think that's counterintuitive, but the thing is, they always you get together with friends and family to break the fast together, something called iftar, and people tend to eat more during that period of the year. A lot of Islamic clerics are not very happy about this. They're saying, hey, this is supposed to be an ascetic time. You don't just wait and just totally pig out in the evening. And also people will tend to get up pretty early in the morning before sunup and have a large breakfast. So that's the Ramadan fast. Part of tradition is to break the fast with it's a date, because there's a story that's how Muhammad used to break the fast. So obviously that's the best way to do it. But Ramadan is a time of ascetic practice, but it's also a time of getting together with family and friends and having a lot of parties and usually staying up very late into the night. Ramadan is also supposed to be a time of moral reformation and moral focus, meaning that people are supposed to focus on being kind, focus on being patient. And one thing that happens during a lot of Ramadans is people will just watch a lot of TV and movies because they don't want to be really active. And again, that's another thing where Islamic clerics are like, no, it's supposed to be a time of not wasting your time, but using your time to do good things and profitable things. So think of a poor pastor who's frustrated with how his people are misunderstanding Christmas and going to Christmas parties and focusing on the gifts, and they're not focusing on the birth of Christ. So it's not a perfect parallel, but you kind of get the idea. There is a rule in the Quran that says that the fast in the Quran and the Hadith, which are the oral traditions that were then written down, that says that for some people, if they're not able to fast, they can make up the fast on another day. So, for example, women who are menstruating cannot fast. They're not allowed to. Women who are breastfeeding do not fast. People who are traveling do not need to fast. That made sense in 8th century Arabia, where traveling was really really hard and difficult and arduous. It's not the same today where, you just go to the airport, get on the plane and fly for a couple of hours, but different Muslims will apply that in different ways. The meaning behind fasting in Islam is actually not that different than it is in Christianity. The idea is that fasting helps you to control your body and to control your appetites. And the idea being that if you are able to control your hunger and what you eat, then you'll be able to control yourself when you're tempted by other things in life. So that is part of the spiritual ideas, or the ethical idea behind fasting. It's ironic because, again, people who are not smoking, who are thirsty, it's hot out, people tend to get grumpy. But that's part of the challenge of the Ramadan fast. And finally, Muslims, if you ask them, they'll tell you that there are health benefits to fasting. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not going to say yes or no about that. But oftentimes Muslims will point to this as being part of the Din al-Fitr, the religion of nature. And they'll say this is one of the reasons why Islam is so great. Again, fasting, though, with no water is I think, problematic. So anyway, there we have Sawm is what it's called in Arabic. It's not the S sound like we have in English. They have two different S sounds in Arabic, and it's Sawm. So try to pronounce it in the back of your mouth. And incidentally, just to toss this in, the Lenten feast or fast, the Lenten fast from Ash Wednesday up until Easter is also called a Sawm for Christians. So Christians use this same vocabulary. It's called Sawm al-Eid al-Kabir, the fast of the great holy day, or the great feast, meaning Easter. So thank you very much. Thank you for your interest in Islam. I hope that you're learning a lot. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and God bless you all.